Jeff Brohm is out. A new candidate surges. What I'm hearing right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. Happy Christmas Eve. We are back in doing a Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Holt, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Thank you to all of our everydayers who watch or listen to the show every single day. Also, big thank you for making us your first listen. For the first two segments, we'll get into what I'm hearing from good sources on the Michigan coaching search. Then we'll get into Biff Poggi's ultra bizarre comments and why it's no good for Michigan whatsoever. Let's dive in to that. All right. So Football Scoop reports this morning that Todd Monken, the current Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator, is a name of interest for Michigan. I've heard that it is gone further than just being a name, that it is at least a worthwhile pursuit here. So like I said at the top, Jeff Brohm is out. Actually, he was never really in. We talked about him yesterday. Hadn't really heard anything one way or the other. But this morning, I checked in with a extremely good source. And they said to me that the candidacy of Todd Monken is real. Jeff Brohm essentially continued to only be like a rumor, that just spread like wildfire. And I mean, here's the thing. Like I said yesterday, Jeff Brohm, uninspiring candidate, but I think he's better than what people are giving him credit for. I think he would do very good at Michigan, but at the same time, sigh of relief if it's not him. I don't want to deal with y'all. That's what it comes down to. I don't want to deal with y'all when it comes to, getting a very uninspiring hire. Now, some people are still being undue. I've been on the message boards this morning. And there's some out here that they just like make up things out of thin air. I swear, like, Todd Monken has he's never been in the Midwest. He doesn't have head coaching experience. He's not very good. Like, oh my goodness. Would you people just stop for a second? I swear. And I texted this to my guy, Clayton Safey. I'm going to read it actually verbatim, what I said to him, because this is kind of how a lot of people are. I said, I don't want Todd Monken because I've come with my preconceived notions that he's awful, and the only coach I will accept is a Curt Cignetti type that's 20 years younger. That's what some of you are. Some of you are seriously like, and I understand Todd Monken's 59 years old, and you're like, well, can't have him. He'd only be here for like 7 or 8 years. Okay, well, fine. It's asinine. Some of the things that some of you think. I'm not saying all of you, but those of you who look at this and say like, only won 2 national championships at Georgia as the offensive coordinator, do not want. Like, come on. Let's go over his experience. It's extensive. He was a grad assistant at both Grand Valley State and Notre Dame. He was at Eastern Michigan. He doesn't know the Midwest, only 7 miles away from Ann Arbor. He was at Eastern Michigan from 1993 through 1999 as defensive backs and wide receivers for the first half, and then or the first 2/3, and then the last 2 years he was offensive coordinator and wide receivers. Louisiana Tech for 1 year or 2 years. 2 years. Oklahoma State for 3 as the pass game coordinator and wide receivers. Same position at LSU for 2. Under Les Miles, by the way, that offense that everyone was going gaga over for a while. Wide receivers coach at Jacksonville, the Jaguars, for 4 years. Oklahoma State returned there and was the OC there for 2 years. Head coach of Southern Miss. This is another place. He was there for 3 years. And people say, like, he failed at Southern Miss. He did not fail. He failed at Southern Miss the same way Jim Harbaugh failed at San Diego or failed at Stanford. Right? Like, he took a nothing team and turned it into a 9-win team. I'm talking a winless team and turned it into a 9-win team by the time that he left. That's his only head coaching experience. By the way, his offensive coordinator at the time, the last 2 years, was Chip Lindsey, of all people. Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator for 3 years. Cleveland Browns offensive coordinator for 1 year, 3 years at Georgia, including 2 national championships. And here's where I stand with this. I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself because I promised 2 segments of this. I think that let me back it up before I get to everything. I think that this is more signs of what I've talked about compared to, like, I understand we were all trying to fill the void with the silence. Do I think he's the top guy and has been the top guy? No, of course not. But I still think that has been Kalen DeBoer. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, go back to Monday's show. But I think that this shows that this is not the cluster that some of you are trying to make it out to be, right? Like, as you hang along with every rumor and everything, and I understand there was smoke yesterday to Brohm. As I said yesterday, I felt like that was not coming from Michigan. I had not had anyone at Michigan tell me that Brohm was a serious candidate. And as of today, I've had someone close to that tell me that he is not, and nor has he been, a serious candidate for the job. So, number one, I think it's a off the radar type of move, and it would be a good one. He turned Stetson Bennett into an NFL player. And once he left, Carson Beck had one decent year, but it wasn't, it kind of fell off. And then Carson Beck's continued to be Carson Beck, right? So he's done that. I know the Ravens. The Ravens weren't good this year. Listen, there's injuries there. But how did the Ravens offense look last year? Pretty dang good. He runs the type of offense Michigan has the personnel for, wants to run, right? It's still a styles make fights against Ohio State type of thing compared to that's my big thing about Brohm in particular. I didn't talk about yesterday, is that essentially with Brohm, you're trying to be Ohio State in a way without a defense that currently is not as good as Ohio State's. So that's a problem to basically, because that's what James Franklin tried to do at Penn State forever, is like, maybe we can outpass them. Maybe if we just build ourselves in Ohio State's image, and that was what Jim Harbaugh tried with Josh Gaddis too, and it didn't work, right? And it did take Ohio State a couple of years, but they did end up doing what worked for Michigan. But I think that when you hear of all the trouble that was happening behind the scenes, well, maybe it could have gone better if everyone was kind of bought in and all of that, which wasn't the case. But I think that there's a lot to like about this. Let me delve a little bit deeper into my thoughts about it. If he ends up being the choice, which I'm not saying he is, we're presenting candidates to you. So let's talk about that here in just a moment. But before we do, NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump right into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you for making Locked On Wolverines your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Wolverines with no interruptions. Members only Discord access. A couple of you are in there now. A couple of you have asked me questions. Ask me questions. I'll tell you. Go to lockedonwolverines.supercast.com. Come on, let's get this right. Or check the link in the show notes to learn more. If you're watching rather than listening, I promise you, even though, yes, this hoodie is, I feel like it's getting a lot of, show run. I promise you, I'm not just throwing on dirty clothes. I promise you, I'm washing it between each. Every time I do laundry, I'm like, well, I got to wear that again. It's the most comfortable thing ever. And if you see the coat, I always get asked when I'm wearing the coat, it's home field. I don't know if they have anything other than extra small left. It's the national championship coat. It's about the coolest thing ever. But home field, homefieldapparel.com, giving them a free ad here. All right. Todd Monken, cousins with Jeff Monken. I'm going to mess that up if he becomes the hire so often. But he is a very good offensive mind. He's been in college. We went through the whole list here. He's been in college a lot. He's been in the NFL a lot. I saw one objection saying, well, he won't be bringing like half his team with him. Okay. Like that's a fair trade. I think getting a really good coach that's highly respected. I understand that there's some Ravens fans out there that are like, we're kind of done with this guy. Okay, fine. Like that. There were people in Ann Arbor that were done with Jim Harbaugh. So like, okay, by all means, you know what I mean? So I don't think that that's an excuse to not go after somebody. Again, I don't know that he's the top candidate. I just know that he is a candidate. A colleague tells me that it feels like, I haven't heard this specifically, but it feels like he has interviewed. So he actually has been in this. So we'll see if that ends up, more comes to light. But I think this is a much more inspiring name than a lot of others. I know he doesn't have the same fire in terms of like things that you see on social media from Kenny Dillingham, who was my number one choice. But I think in terms of what he brings to the table from an offensive standpoint, he's kind of just like the older version of him. I don't know how, if you're a Michigan fan, you can look at what he did at Georgia, running essentially the same type of a better version of what Michigan's tried to run with, in some cases, more talent, but in some cases, lesser talent. Like, he's coached Lamar Jackson. So you can sit there and say, like, okay, here's a good idea. I have a really good idea that we can do. We can sell Bryce Underwood on the idea of being Lamar Jackson. Right? Having someone that's worked with Lamar Jackson directly, someone that turned Stetson Bennett into an NFL draftee. I mean, I know he's not playing in the NFL, but turned him into an NFL draftee. And still likes to run the ball, use tight ends, right? He had Brock Bowers. That the offense was unstoppable against Michigan. And keep in mind, Michigan had Aiden Hutchinson, had all these guys up front. They couldn't, the offensive line wasn't phenomenal. They certainly looked better than Michigan, right? Like Michigan beat out Georgia for the Joe Moore Award, and it's much to the complaints of people in Athens, and ended up seeing it live and saying like, okay, well, your complaints are valid. So I think that tells you a lot about why that's a fit in terms of personnel, and I think that he would be, to me, I would put him in that upper tier. I might even put him ahead of Kalen DeBoer personally, because there's no guarantee that Kalen DeBoer comes to Ann Arbor and wins big, right? He took Washington to a national championship game at Alabama, following up Nick Saban. It was 9-4 last year, and right now they're still in the playoff, and who knows how far they go, right? But like, especially with a lot of the factions we've seen, because make no mistake, some of this Jeff Brohm candidacy stuff and, all these, names coming out from some places, the Dillingham not being like actually on the table, all that, like it's partially because I still believe the factions are alive and well in Ann Arbor. So what's funny to me though, too, how long are a lot of you, I'm not saying Ward is perfect. As a matter of fact, I've said the opposite on this show. And I've also said that despite my friendship with him, I don't think he can retain his job given just this constant turnover. Not turnover, but constant scandal. Whether the scandals are warranted or unwarranted, it doesn't really matter at this point, in my opinion. Like, it's thing after thing after thing. Like when I worked at United Talent Agency, I was my last boss there, a wonderful woman named Sarah Clossy. And I messed up some things big. The big one was her going out of town for Thanksgiving. She wanted to go to New York first. And so I canceled the flight that she had originally from Los Angeles to where she was going with her mother in the Caribbean, and just, or actually I didn't cancel. She didn't board it. And I had it. So I was like, thinking like, okay, she can just go take the leg that she's supposed to fly LA to Miami and then to this other spot. So I had her fly New York to Miami, and then she couldn't get on the plane because I didn't do things right. Right. Like I was in hot water for quite a minute after that, because she had to spend like $2,000 to get on, just to be able to board the flight that she already had a ticket to, but because she didn't catch her first leg, didn't get. So I was on hot water for a little while. I made sure not to make it, like nothing else. Granted, that was a direct mistake on my end. And after a while, there was nothing else. And then there was, other little things would pop up. And, eventually there were, things that were either in my control like that, or things that were out of my control like that, that started to sour the relationship to some degree. It happens at a talent agency when you're an agent trainee. It does. Granted, I left my post of my own volition because I didn't want to be a talent agent. Heck, she hired me knowing I didn't want to be a talent agent anymore, and I was trying to get the heck out of Hollywood. But nonetheless, when those things pile up, you start to recognize, like, okay, I don't see how this person survives this. So I say that, but I don't know how a lot of you don't understand that the well has been poisoned in terms of your perception against Ward Manuel. And if this is the type of trigger that he's able to pull while all of you are hand-wringing over Jeff Brohm, which, as I said at the top of the show, I was told he was never a serious candidate for Michigan. I just told you about how there are factions working still here within everything in Ann Arbor. So if that's the case, then, I don't understand why you won't change your perception on this. I'm not saying like you should look at him and be like, oh man, he's great. But like, understand that he's not just like this blubbering idiot like some of you think. This is an excellent outside the box hire idea. And I love it, honestly. Like, he's really experienced. I think it's great to have someone that's 59 years old, right? A little bit more mature to kind of navigate this. He's going to come, he'd come in and be no nonsense. I would love the type of staff he'd be able to build with the types of connections he's made across like his wonderfully extensive tenure. He's been in the Ann Arbor area. He knows what that's all about. He knows what the weather's like. He knows what Michigan's all about, right? Like, it's kind of impossible to when you're just right next door. So I think this is a phenomenal idea, a phenomenal candidacy. As I'm telling you right now, I didn't think that much outside the box. And had I recognized that he would be a name that'd be brought up, he would vault to the top of my list. He has pretty much everything that I want out of a head coach candidate. And I think anyone in Ann Arbor, any of the players that would look at him and say, nah, you know what, I'm going to try my hand somewhere else, would be doing themselves a disservice. And I think they'd know that. I think this would be, especially given the timing of this, right? Like, it sounds like, okay, there's several scenarios. It's more likely than not that the Ravens are bounced from the playoffs. You can get this guy on campus like right away. I think that this would be the move, personally. That's has my vote of confidence. Make it happen. All right, we're going to move on. I want to get to some of this Biff Poggi stuff on a Texas podcast. I'm kind of beside myself with this. So we're going to get to that here in just a moment. All right, I got to preface this by making sure that, people within the building watch the show, listen to the show. I want to make it very clear, because I love Biff Poggi, that I love Biff Poggi. However, I think this was a catastrophic mistake by Poggi to go on the Stampede podcast with Mac Brown, Bob Ballou, and Vince Young. And I listened to some of it. Mostly I threw it into my transcriber and read the transcript for most of it, but man, so, like the soundbite was going around yesterday. We'll read some of that here, but like there's 2 quotes here, and I didn't include the whole quotes, but I got to read you a little bit, and we'll read and react. Here's what he says. He says, "Here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to be the guy that talks them into it, and then something happens." Talking about playing in the bowl game. So, he had referenced Jake Butt the other day, and I think, obviously, he knows Jake very well. So I've just resigned myself that is possibly going to happen, and it's happening with those guys for sure. But also, Coach, I have to tell you with what's going on with us here and now. Hopefully that's updates. Nope, updated too far. Hold on. We sent them home for Christmas yesterday, and I think there's a really good chance that we're going to have many more opt-outs for the game, unfortunately, because we're in such a state of flux. And when they get to this business, the business side of it, they think, well, we don't have a coach, or we've had this situation with our former coach. There's investigations and all these things. I don't know who's going to coach me. Why do I want to get playing that game? And so I can see some of that happening too. And I would tell you on the 26th, we're probably going to have a significantly different roster than we had yesterday when we sent them home. All right. I get that he's being honest and actually realistic. I also would say, don't say that anywhere. Let's continue with the next quote, the one that really went viral. Obviously, we talk all the time about Texas and the personnel and what they do and how all that for them, but we're being very careful about putting any goals around this thing that could wind up being a further disappointment to the kids we have. And that could just be viewed as wrong, but I just feel like having my hands on the pulse that right now, what they need is to enjoy the game of football again. And we will play hard. We're coming. We will play hard. I don't know how many we'll come with, quite frankly, and I don't know how well we'll play, but we'll play hard, and I want them to be able to say the rest of their lives, we played really hard against a great opponent, we gave it our all, and when lesser men would have maybe not and probably will not be there on the 31st, so I'm thinking, honestly, there could be 25 guys possibly not come back, and as disappointed as you are, you understand, how do you do that? End quote. You don't need, not everything you think needs to be said publicly, because you're not just trying to keep together a team to play for a bowl game. You're trying to keep a team together in general. I understand that he is being, in a lot of ways, very honest about the situation at hand. Okay? I think that he is definitely being honest about the potential pitfalls, right? He gave overwhelming love to Texas on this thing. Says he thinks Texas will win. I understand that there are more important things to some degree than winning this game in Ann Arbor, but play to win the game. That's the point of it. Don't go out there and say I don't think we can do it. Right? You're sending a message to your team one way or the other. And this is a terrible message to send to the guys that you're currently overseeing. You're not exactly priming them. As a matter of fact, you're almost prophesying to them hey, if you want to get out of here, I get it. Yeah, it's state of flux, never going to get better. Yeah, I just want you to go out there and have fun. I'm sorry, you cannot say these things. And it's awful that Michigan let him go on a Texas podcast and do this. When you combine, I understood what happened on Monday, and I found it honestly refreshing. But there seems to be some of the factions here, just inside baseball, of this Biff Poggi can fix it, which right now he's telling you he can't, and that he's the only one that can fix it. He's also telling you he can't. There are some out there that are saying that there's going to be a mass exodus if it's not him as the head coach. Here's the thing. Michigan I hope that whoever they bring in retains Biff Poggi. I love Biff Poggi. I want to make that clear. That doesn't make this any less of a misstep in my eyes. But there's some that are legitimately trying to tell you that NIL is dried up because of Biff Poggi. It's not even remotely true. Or that it will dry up if he's not the head coach. Not even remotely true. I have that on extremely good authority. As a matter of fact, it's been the opposite in a lot of ways. this undermines a bit of, I think, the confidence that one would have, not only in the team, but in him as a leader, because you like his job. He says he was told, go and love the kids. Okay. But also being the interim head coach, you're also an ambassador to the Michigan football program. And I get what he's trying to say. I get what he's trying to do. I look at where he's doing it and say, that's awful. And also say, like, these are thoughts that in a moment like this, because this isn't something that everyone needs to know. Basically what he's doing here is telling people, like he said, like it's, they're negotiating, the transfer portal now. And what you're doing is openly saying is, do you want some Michigan players? Because we are open for business. It's less than ill-advised. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to say and do, especially while they are trying to get their ducks in a row, to prime these guys to be like, all right, I'm holding tight. Because right now, 3 opt-outs. Remember, I asked him the question about, how are you holding this together? You haven't had a bunch of opt-outs, a bunch of signees run for the hills, right? Like, you got to show a little bit more public confidence than this, right? And I'm not saying like, oh, you got to hide things and things like that. I'm not saying that at all. But like, what CEO in the moment when they're looking at the nature of the business goes into like, essentially the podcast of a rival financial organization and sit there and say like, this isn't going to work out, guys. It like you're for being a hedge fund manager, you're begging the investors to pull out of the hedge fund with this. I don't like it at all. So with that, I think it kind of does hasten Michigan in getting something done sooner than later to some degree, because like this could start the bleeding. If like it could. But again, like, don't worry about the money. Like everything's there. No one's giving these ultimatums that, if it's not Biff Poggi, like I'm not paying for, I'm not donating anymore. NIL is not going to be a thing. That's just not true. So we talked about that last week or the week before or something like that. So I just want you to know that, number one, if you're a fan. Number two, like, what are we doing here? Honestly, I have nothing else to say other than it's embarrassing. And again, Biff, if you're watching or you hear about this, I love you to death. I'm just telling you that this is a misstep, and we all make missteps. I make them on this show all the time. I make them in my writing all the time. It doesn't mean that I hate anybody or anything of that nature. All I'm saying is this was a poor decision. And hopefully Michigan rectifies it by bringing in a quality head coach sooner than later. We'll see. And on that terrible disappointment, it's time to end. I'm going to use the Jeremy Clarkson thing as much as I remember to do it. We will have a Christmas Day show. So stay tuned to that. And then on Friday late afternoon, maybe early evening, maybe a little bit later than normal, we will be in Orlando. And that's where the show will be. There's a chance we won't do a Friday show. There's a chance that we push that to either Saturday or Sunday, because we've got stuff going every day. So if we don't do a Friday show, we'll make up for it with other days. Like that's almost certainly going to happen anyway. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you again soon. Peace.